Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Spencer here. In this video we're going to cover mitered skirt boards for stairs. Stairs bewilder a lot of guys, but it's really not that complicated if you know the right tips and tricks and have the right tools. So in this video I'm going to start by showing you how to figure the angles and cut a mitered skirt board. This is going to be a multi-video series so that I can cover it in depth. But video one, which is what you're on right now, is going to cover the skirt board cutting aspect of it. I think you'll enjoy the video and learn a lot, so stay tuned. Drop me a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. To get started on this, I'm going to come over here and grab one of my false tread end caps. These are manufactured by LJ Smith. They come pre-packaged. Currently they have two styles that I know of. One is a traditional style and one is a contemporary style. There are 4 pieces in each box: the plywood riser, the plywood tread, and then 2 pieces of molding. The first thing we're going to need to do is to remove the framing tread nosing on these treads on the end. So right now I'm showing you first how that's done. I'm just using a circular saw, and I'm going to knock these off, and then I'm going to use a multi-tool to clean up the drywall. I wanted you to see this first, and now I'm going to go backwards and show you how I figured out where to cut these off at. Okay, so you got to notch this nosing out, and you're going to have a skirt board right here, and then your tread cap is going to sit on it like that, and then your piece of nosing will go over it like so. So you might think you need to cut it off your nosing exactly with this line, but I like to leave 3/8 inch gap here for the carpet to tuck around it. You'll probably see that and it'll make more sense later. When it comes to cutting these nosings off, you don't have to be super precise about it. The main thing is you just need to make sure that that tread nosing is cut further back than the riser. Otherwise it'll screw it up later down the road when you're trying to put the skirt board on. Also, you really should be wearing eye protection when doing this. A lot of times there's drywall screws that are, they just for some reason they like to put their screw right into the end of the tread. And if you hit one of those with the blade, it could be a bad deal. So I'm being a bad example here. Next, you're going to want to have a really clean area to mark out your skirt board. And if you've got any drywall that's proud of your framing, it's going to mess things up whenever you're trying to mark your cuts for your risers and treads. So I like to go through with a multi-tool, clean up all the drywall, then take a broom and sweep off the steps, and then we'll be good to go and move forward on the next step. Get it? Move forward on the next step. No pun intended here. Alright, so now it's time to move on to the exciting part of our skirt board. Before we can do that, we have to get the angle of the stair. And as I've said many times on this channel, I am supported by you basically buying tools through the links in the notes on these videos or through my Amazon store. Well, this is a tool I will recommend that will make you a ton of money and make you way more productive. The Stabila 48-inch digital level is hands down one of my favorite tools, and in my opinion, it is absolutely essential for stair work. So I will definitely have that digital level listed in the notes below. I'd highly recommend it. What I'm doing now is I'm marking out the bottom of my skirt board. I use a 1x10. I try to maximize the visible skirt board, so I'm dropping it down about as low as I possibly can. So now I'm just going to take my longer level, try and connect my marks. This is not an exact science. And I'm going to put my digital level on top of my longer level with the angle that I predetermined my stair was set at, and then I'm going to get it just right and make a mark along the bottom of my level, and that will represent the bottom of my skirt board. Here you can see just how easy it is to get the angle of your rake with this digital level. I'll plop a longer level on here, plop the digital one on top of it. Make sure I don't have any treads that are not in plane with the others, as if one would be high and the level would be rocking or something like that. Then just hit the power button and it's going to spit out the angle for you, and you can go to town. Now that I have the bottom of my skirt marked and I have my angle, all I have to do is get a rough measurement on the length, make it a little extra long, and then I can cut the skirt board and I'll tack it in place. When you cut this thing, your top cut is going to be whatever the measurement on your level was. So if it was 38 degrees, my plumb cut is 38, and then the complement is going to be the long cut on the bottom, which in this case would then be 52 degrees. First thing I'm going to do is tack the bottom, and then I'm going to grab my digital level again. This is a really important part. I'm going to use that digital level and make sure that this skirt board is exactly on the angle that I want it to be. I'm not even going with my pencil marks. I'm actually going to use the level itself to make sure it's perfect. Then I'm going to put another nail in the top. For the next step, I always keep a jig in my stair kit. Some would call this breeches or Dutchman's pants. You'll see why in a little bit here. Okay, so next up, I need to mark out the spaces on my skirt board here. These are called Dutchman's pants because they're shaped like a Dutchman's pants or Amish, if you're familiar with that. Some people call them breeches, but it's just a simple jig that will slide over your skirt board, and this needs to match the width of whatever your riser material is. So in this case, these kits come with 1/2-inch plywood for the riser. This is a 1/2-inch jig I always save. You can see here it's got save written on it, and it's always in my stair kit. If this board were to be 3/4 inch thick, this jig would need to also be 3/4 of an inch thick. So to mark the line where I need to cut the miter for my riser, I'm going to take my jig, I'm going to make sure it's firmly pressed against the riser 2x here, and then I'm going to pull out my level, my trusty torpedo level. I'm going to be marking this front side because that's where the front edge of the miter is going to be, and that's where I want to cut. So I'm going to make sure I got nice firm contact. For whatever reason, these never seem to be plumb. So I'm going to take my level on the back side, and I am going to move this until it's plumb. I'm going to push this against the riser. And now I'll take my pencil and mark that front edge. And just repeat this process all the way down using my torpedo level to get it plumb and then marking that front edge. If you listen carefully, you can even hear the mariachi music playing in the background from the painters outside. So now we've got our plumb line for our riser miters. Now we need to find the horizontal line for where we're going to cut for our tread. I use the same jig, and I just go to the back of the tread so the jig is sitting on the back side, and mark the bottom here because this is level across. And then I'll come and do the same thing on the front. I make these two lines the whole way. You don't have to get crazy precise with this because I like to cut make my cut line an actual maybe 1/16 higher than what my actual mark is to ensure that it sits in my adhesive really nice. Now you'll notice here as I mark my level line, look how far out of level this tread was. And it actually is that far out of level. So I make my level line usually a 1/16 higher than my highest mark. That way the whole thing will sit down just fine. If you just make one mark and the tread's out of level, which they always are, it'll be screwed up. So always make one mark front and back. Even check if the tread is humped, it could cause an issue. But generally, if you go a 1/16 higher than your marks, you'll be good and everything will be fine. Now we remove the stringer which was temporarily tacked in place. The most difficult part of marking this out is knowing where to make your plumb cuts on the top and bottom of the stringer. You can see I already had my newel on the other side of the stairs, so my plumb cut was based off of that. It's a little bit beyond the scope of what I'm going to get into in this video though, but maybe in the future I'll cover more on newel placement. It's extremely important that on the bottom plumb cut where your skirt board is going to go up against your newel, that you mark that perfectly plumb. The reason is that cut is going to actually help plumb the newel whenever you install the newel. As you can see here, this process really is not complicated, and it goes really pretty quickly once you get the hang of it. It's just a matter of having the right jig and kind of knowing what you're doing. It'll take you 1 or 2 to get the hang of this, but it's actually pretty simple. Making the miter cuts is pretty easy. You're going to set your miter at 38 degrees and then your bevel at 45.5 degrees to make sure that outside corner stays nice and tight. Overcutting it a little bit is a good thing. When you get all the way to the bottom and you're going to make your cut that your newel will bump up against, which will be your plumb cut, I actually don't go with, say, my 38 degrees. I'll make sure that my cut is going to line up with that pencil line, because I know I plumbed that with my level, and it's very important that that cut be perfectly level whenever you go back and install it, because that's going to make sure your newel is nice and tight and also that your newel is plumb. You'll also notice I just bumped the miter saw over about 5 to 10 degrees. That's going to ensure that the outside of this cut stays nice and tight to the newel, and it's also going to allow me to put a little bit of adhesive in the back of that so that it'll bond the skirt board to the newel and make it nice and solid. Now this is the only point in my personal workflow where I wish I had the Makita 12-inch miter saw versus the DeWalt, because the Makita goes to 60 degrees on both sides. So sometimes you get lucky and you can use the correct side on the DeWalt, but for the times it doesn't, it's really handy for me to grab this HKC track saw and make the horizontal cuts with it. My pencil mark is on the face of the skirt board, and I just don't really have a good way of flipping it over, which is what I need to do in order to make the cut with a miter saw. So I just grabbed this thing and it works pretty good. I forgot to mention it previously, but you can actually overcut your pencil line about 1 inch doing this. And since you're mitering the plumb cut, you do need to overcut in order to get all the way through that connection. If you don't, you'll have to use a handsaw to finish the rest of the cut. So it's easier just to overcut about 1 inch, because your molding will cover that up. As you can see here, chalk another one up for the HKC. Comes in really handy when it comes in handy. Makes quick work of this job. If you don't overcut enough, this is the tool I use. There are 2 Japanese saws that I use. One has the, I don't know anything about Japanese hand saws, but this one's got the stiffener on the back. Some situations you can't use this saw because of this. So some of those other situations you need a saw like this that's just the blade. I don't know what you call these, but I'll link them in the notes below. These 2 saws save me all the time whenever I have to make cuts that aren't safe to do with a power saw, or I just simply can't do with a power saw. One more thing I like to do before I move on is cut a block for the bottom of the skirt board, and this block just simply serves a purpose in that it gives my baseboard something to die into, and that's what you see me doing here. That's it for this video. Drop a comment below if you've got any questions or comments. Next video we'll cover how to install the false tread end caps on this skirt board by pre-assembling them. If you haven't yet, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos, and also you can turn on notifications for whenever I do upload these videos. That way you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.